Hey guys, T-Bull here. Today I got a look at the Tier 6 Japanese premium battleship, Ashitaka. Takagi on the screen here. The build looks pretty good. I might swap that perk 4. I think it's a range boost for the damage con. Might be the only thing I'd really tweak on this. Japanese battleships, this one included, tend to have really long range on their main guns, but they tend to get a little wonky when you're running them at max capacity, so you could play around with that. Jojo, Cunningham, those are pretty solid for these Japanese lines. Why I'm reviewing this ship's on sale this week, so I've had a couple people sending me messages asking my opinion on it. And I don't think we've covered this one since probably the first impression video, so it's high tide to take another look at it. Spoiler alert, I do like this ship quite a bit. Most of the Tier 6 battleships are pretty solid. Looking at the list, I don't see any that I really don't like, but I do enjoy playing this one from time to time. What is it exactly? It's kind of like a down-tiered early version of the Yamagi, non-upgraded Yamagi hull. Same 410 guns. The shells are earlier versions though, so you run into some of those issues if you're familiar with the Mutsu, or I kind of run them how I run a lot of the shorter fuse British battleships firing AP, where you're not necessarily going to be scoring a lot of waterline hits on the heavily armored battleships that have, well protected citadels, but you can just raise your gun or your aim up, half the ship, and you'll be scoring the equivalent damage, the 10, 15k salvos. Just because you don't get that citadel ribbon doesn't mean it's not an effective shot. Fiji pops up right off the bat. Those of you that have played the Fiji or seen videos of it should understand by now that the ship is very dangerous. So I'm going to take just a second here. He's kind of coming in. We're looking on the map, seeing how steeply angled he's actually coming in. Line that shot up, and he gone right off the bat. So we got 31.5k damage off that salvo. Not a bad opener. Got rid of one of the ships, at least on paper, that we do want to deal with. Battleships, of course, are kind of the hard counter to cruisers, and if they're going to present opportunities like that to kill them, go ahead and take that shot. Here we got a bit of an issue though. We got a Leon, which has very menacing AP salvos, and connected by a 2-foot rope apparently to it is the King George, which of course fires the HE rounds typically, and you saw it got 2 fires right off the bat, so we have to burn the damage con. That can cause a little bit of an issue. Here I'm attempting to turn away. As I was doing this, I was kind of like getting mad at myself because I was going so slow, so I'm not going to be able to turn very quickly there. And we got lucky there. That could have been a massive 30k salvo coming my way, which at this point in the game is a little early to be taking shots like that. So as you gain more experience with the game, the voice that's telling you, what are you doing? This is a dumb idea. That should be going off more and more often as you've become familiar with situations that you're recognizing in the field, and recognizing there that I was going really slow, that I wasn't gonna be able to turn all the way angled to roughly how I am now. I could even go a little bit steeper, but I wasn't gonna be able to get there by the time those 2 guns were reloaded. So instead of ignoring that voice like I did there, what you need to do is start to listen to it, and then what I should have done there is just held that steeper angle towards those 2 battleships, got up to speed, wait for them to discharge the round, and then take the shot after I absorbed that round, or those salvos. I tried to blind fire that Belfast. I thought he was sitting horizontally towards me. I think watching this replay, it was probably angled directly at me, so we shot to the left of him there, I believe. But that's alright. We got the King George Leon coming back around again. Now we're kind of getting more centrally located. For battleships with really good range, that's typically where I like to get, towards the center of the map. That'll allow you to project power across more area. Of course, you do have to protect yourself because more ships are going to have access to you, but rather than doing what the 2 ships on the left are doing, which is kind of going all the way to the west to deal with the 1 ship that remains over there, we're still in a position to potentially deal with that ship, but we're not going to require a 5-minute turnaround just to get back into the action once that ship is taken care of. So a key thing of battleships, a key thing to keep in mind is you got to be 2 or 3 steps ahead in your mind. What am I going to want to do once this situation is resolved over here? And especially if you get like a Colorado or something really slow, those American battleships where it's going to take a long time. Belfast, here he is. He gone. There he was. But, you know, you just got to be 2 steps ahead. And you can see these ships. Just keep an eye on those 2 on the left. Not to pick on them, but once that ship is gone, they're going to be basically not firing their guns for 3, 4, 5 minutes, which is an issue. If you're going a third of the match without doing anything, you're not in the game at that point, and you're effectively giving an advantage to your team with regards to your strength on the team. Leon, I am trying to get rid of that one. That's a ship that you can get rid of it fairly quickly. It's not the most heavily armored ship. It's harder to protect itself. But if you leave it alone for a long stretch of time, it's got the firepower. It's got those 16 guns that will shred your team. So doing damage to him is my priority at this point. Once we've gotten rid of those 2 cruisers that we're able to deal with quite efficiently. I used to talk a lot more about target selection when the game is newer, but there's a lot of new players that maybe are watching my newer stuff, but not the old videos. So the battleships, you want to go ahead and get rid of your cruisers. Destroyers, of course, on paper, you're trying to get rid of the battleships, and cruisers, you're trying to get rid of destroyers. It's kind of the old rock, paper, scissors thing. Usually, though, a lot of people that don't understand that will just try and shoot battleships throughout the entirety of the game. And, you know, that's often an issue. You want to try and get rid of the ships as efficiently as possible. Both the Belfast and the Fiji, if you're going to leave them alone, they can deal huge amounts of damage throughout the game. But we can take care of them in one salvo if we hit those shots. So those are kind of the priority targets for the battleships, and especially kind of a cruiser killer battleship like this one. Again, not quite as effective at dealing damage to battleships as some. Why we're stopped here as opposed to moving. This battleship I like to keep moving, but that destroyer, it was finally spotted after being unsighted for the first half of the match. You can see the smoke sitting there now, so trying to stay out of the torp range. We're going to assume he was trying to torp us, and we just are trying to make sure that we can't get hit by those torps. This battleship, though, ideally, if that destroyer isn't in the area, I want to keep going, you know, roughly full speed, or at least have a good forward momentum. Then I can open and close my firing angles as need be, and, you know, protect the ship a little bit better from the incoming battleship fire. But the torps, of course, are the more immediate danger. You can see them go by there on the right-hand side of the screen. So kind of keeping an eye on the map, keeping an eye on the situation. We do recognize where our hard counter is, and we try and keep that in mind, and that was the reason for that stop there. And here, as I'm kind of wigging out on these guys, this is the point I was trying to make earlier. You can see on the scorecard there, we're up 2 ships. We've basically killed 2 full battleships worth of HP on the enemy's team plus, and yet we're really not wrapping up this game. Our team is mostly concentrated on the east, and then me and the ship near me to the south are holding the central spawn, or the center position, and then the 2 ships to the west are just now potentially getting back into the game. So a little bit hard to press your numerical advantage when your ships are mispositioned like that. And again, I'm not trying to harp on those 2 individuals, but it's just something that you always want to be working on. Figuring out where do I need to be and where am I going to need to be to continue to be effective throughout this game. But now we're up to just shy of 150k, and you can see this ship, it's capable of doing quite a bit of a damage, quite a high damage output on this one. And here's more what I'm talking about, keep it moving, then we can fire all those turrets, and then, well, I didn't close I should have angled a little bit steeper to that ship to protect ourselves there. It's getting a little bit late in the game in terms of our HP. But this is the battleship role. What we want to primarily do is take a lot of incoming fire. That means they're not shooting at our ships that are more susceptible to being one shot, like the cruisers. They're not firing at them. those cruisers are still on the board and they're still dealing damage every 7.5 to 15 seconds, whatever the reload is. But I don't. When I'm playing battleships, if I'm the last one alive on my team, I consider that a problem because that means they weren't shooting at me. I'm not soaking up that damage. They're killing the ships that are more easily removed from the battle earlier on. So that's kind of what you want to do if you're trying to say, if you're sitting way in the back saying to yourself, I can't take any damage, I need to be the last one alive, then battleships are really not the class to be doing that in. Cruisers are the ones you want to stay alive in as long as possible, not get shot, and continue to deal damage. Cruisers are going to be getting most of their damage throughout the entirety of the game. Barring torp hits, you're not going to get wicked salvos that do massive damage in one shot here, one shot there. That doesn't mean charge forward and then sit broadside and die 2 minutes into the match. That's not what I'm talking about. But you do want those ships, the enemy ships, firing at your battleships first. And then, they can soak up the damage, they can angle the armor, and they'll survive as long as possible while doing damage. And the other ships, the support ships, the cruisers, the destroyers, they do the ancillary damage, and then your team wins. So, pretty good match there. Hope that was a good look for the Ashitaka for you. Again, I do like the ship. Whether it's worth it to you or not is an individual decision that I can't make for you. But that's going to do it for that one, guys. I think this was the game we unlocked the Belfast. Maybe I'll put up another one of those here coming up soon. But if you did like this video, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. There's a lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions, comments, leave them below. I do love to hear from you guys. And we'll see y'all later. All right, peace.